So soon I'm going to introduce our amazing chef, but not quite yet. First, I'm going to ask you to imagine that you're in a crowd, a very, very tight crowd at a concert or at a train station or, I don't know, at a bullfight maybe, I don't know, running with the bulls. I don't know what you do, but something like that where there are lots of people. And I want you to imagine that there are all these people kind of squeezing in on you. And maybe you came with a friend, and the friend was right there. But then over time, all these people are squishing you in every direction. And it's really hard to resist all this pushing and pulling in every way. And suddenly your friend is over there, and you're like, Adrian, I'm over here. And it's just this very intense pushing and pulling. That is pretty much what it's like to be a molecule. Imagine you're a molecule, a water molecule in water. That's just what it's like. You're just surrounded by other molecules, and they're squishing around, pushing on you in every direction. It's called Brownian motion when it's molecules. But you know what it's like. You have experienced Brownian motion. So imagine you're a molecule. Now imagine that you are that water molecule in a big pot of water, and there is a rice grain. There's a rice grain. And over time, this rice grain is quite hard in the beginning, but over time, all this pushing and pulling makes it so that the water molecules slowly make their way into the rice grain, right? And it kind of cooks it. And it does this in a sort of random fashion. Just like you were pushed and pulled in every direction in this crowd, it happens randomly. It's not just one direction, happens randomly over time. But over time, you're going to sort of move some distance into the rice grain, right? And you're going to cook the rice. Okay, so this is the imaginative image. And here is the scaled down image that's going to bring us to the equation that is on the apron. So now this is kind of more two-dimensional. So here you have, this is your rice grain, and this is water molecules, water molecules. And there's lots and lots and lots of water molecules here. And then over time, they're sort of going to move in, one step forward, one step back. For those of you who have been before, you may know that this also has the name of the drunkard's walk or the random walk, because you're sort of randomly walking in every direction. And that is kind of the idea you can use to derive the equation we're going to get to. But if we forget about the kind of deriving and we just look at this, you can see how there's this random motion moving in. And over time, you've moved some distance. So let's just call that distance something. Let's call it L. So over some time, t, you have moved some distance L. And how far you go is basically going to depend on how quickly you moved, right? So if you're a molecule that is very quick, so let's say you're in the crowd of people, and you're a very quick, small person, you're just like weaseling your way around. And if you have, I don't know, you're carrying an umbrella, or like a stroller, you're going to be really slow, right? So it's going to depend on how quick you are. And we can just call that something. And I'm going to just call it D, which is short for diffusion coefficient. And the diffusion coefficient is basically sort of the speed. So it's the distance in some two-dimensional space over time. Okay, so if I just summarize what I just said, you wait for some time t, you then diffuse some distance L, and how fast this happens is going to depend on the diffusion coefficient D, right? And it turns out that if you actually measure these, if you do this over and over and over, you cook rice, you measure how far the water goes, and you can then get an equation for this. And this is the equation. There you go. And for those new people, we clap for equations. And the equation is, where is it? Oh, it's up here. It's up here. So we've gone to the top right of the apron. And so this is, I think it's a beautiful equation. It does what equations do best. It predicts what's going to happen, right? That's one of the beauties of equations. So what I'd kind of like to propose to you, and you can go home and try this out, is once you have this equation, and once you kind of know how quickly something moves, you have the answer to all your recipes. You can throw away your recipes, and you can just use this equation, and you can plug in, like, how thick is my steak? Okay, I want it to go to the center, right? And how long should I cook it if the heat moves this quickly? Out I go, and I get my time, right? And there's your recipe. You can do it for anything. So in this class, I couldn't resist, but look back at some of the other people who have kind of taught us about diffusion, this concept of diffusion, in this class. So if there are people in the audience who've been here before, you may recognize some of them. One of the first people who taught us about diffusion was actually Ferran Adrià, who he spherified things, which is this molecular gastronomy technique. And you can actually see a picture up here of the sphere. And here he is in one of these lecture halls, spherifying a delicious something juice, I don't remember. The whole idea of that is that calcium ions move into a sphere, and then that sort of gels an alginate polymer, and you get this gel, and it's this little round thing that you eat. Familiar? Okay, good. Enough people. From this, we calculated the diffusion coefficient for calcium ions a long time ago. A few years after that, Virgilio Martinez and Malena Martinez from Central in Peru. Anyone went to that lecture? Yeah, isn't it great? So you came to the lecture, and do you remember how I had begged him, Virgilio, I know that you want to talk about all the amazing creations in your restaurant, but could you please cook ceviche? And he was like, okay, fine. And so he cooked a ceviche. And ceviche, as you know, is basically raw fish that you put into an acidic environment, so something with an acid, so citric acid, lemon juice, and then you wait over time, right? Over time, T, and over time, those protons on the acids move into the raw fish, some distance L, right, at a speed of diffusion, which corresponds to the protons that are in the lemon juice, right? And so we use this to calculate how far the protons, so basically the hydrogen ions, which are the ones that cook the proteins in the fish, how far they went in Virgilio's recipe. And it turns out that there's kind of this movement in how you cook ceviche these days, apparently. You may know better. You're supposed to do a very quick soak, super quick. So 30 seconds he cooked it for. Another one is like overnight, but he was like, no, that's too long, 30 seconds. And I was like, Virgilio, I'm not sure it's cooking so much, because in 30 seconds you get 0.3 millimeters in. But okay, fine, good. So we used this equation to calculate that. A little bit after that, we invited Freddie Bitsui, who was at the time at the Smithsonian, and he cooked hominy, which is this idea that you submerge corn kernels in calcium hydroxide for like 30 minutes. And then over time, these hydroxide ions move in, and they basically transform the corn and kind of cook it, make it softer. And so we use the equation to calculate D for how quickly these hydroxide ions move, and we got this number. Okay, and then finally, this is a little plug for next week. Next week, we're going to do the same, but we're going to do it outside, and we're going to do it on ribs. And basically, Brian Furman, who's here, he's going to come and he's going to help us calculate how quickly heat and smoke move into meat, right? And we're going to see what this distance here is. And we're going to taste how far this distance here is. Okay, so basically what I've said is, here's this equation. It's an amazing equation. tells you so much. You can throw away your recipes. And Brian, Virgilio, and Ferran, they have shown us which D we should use for all of these different foods. And so the obvious challenge for today is, Kyo, you're going to have to help us add to this list. You're going to help us add to this list. And so what I'd like for you all to do is keep an eye out in this lecture for things that are diffusing. It could be all kinds of things. And if you're really into it, this is where you could pull out pen and paper and be like, I'm going to use this equation. I'm going to calculate D for whatever is diffusing. I leave that up to you, but it's an option. Okay, so with that, I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to introduce Kyo Pang, whom we are so excited to have here with us. So Kyo is the founder and executive chef of Kopitiam in New York City. She came all the way up from there, and she has won all kinds of awards. I made a list here. Eater Chef of the Year 2018, back-to-back James Beard Best Chef Awards semifinalist, and Bon Appetit Magazine Hot 10, and many, many, many others. So please join me in welcoming Kyo Pang.
Hello. Hi, my name is Kyo Pang, and I'm the chef and owner at Kopitiams in New York City. So I spend most of my time in the restaurant, so I said, thank you for inviting me to come to this event, so finally get me out from my restaurant. So a little bit of my background. I am a Nyonya, so we call our group of people the Baba Nyonyas. It's a very specific group in Southeast Asia, and I'm apparently the third and the last generations in my family. So in Chester, a little bit back to a little bit of our background, so that our ancestors were Portuguese, that they located, they traveled to Malaysia, and then we also have the other half of our ancestors, like my great-grandparents. They were from China. They were from the falling empire. My great-grandmother was actually a late princess, and decided they travel all the way. Hey, this place seems very comfortable. Let's stay here. So there are main three places. So I'm just saying that we use a lot of our cuisines is very colorful. So you can see the pictures over here. The presentations, everything like that. We use a lot of colors in our cuisine, and then mostly all of them, the colors are from the flowers, the leaves that we use. We pretty much we grow all that in our backyard or garden. So this is the background, so where my family is from, my great-grandparents are. So it was from China, the falling empire, and then decided to travel, and all the way and decided to come down to Malaysia, and then decided, there are groups of people that to stay in Malaysia, some people that actually went to Indonesia, have different influence from different people during that time. So the main Baba Nyonya people that we have in Malaysia is in Penang, Malacca, and Singapore. The reason why is that because the piers are around that area. And then this is for business, for exchange and all that. I'm originally from Penang, born and raised in Penang. So I'm from the north. And then both of my parents were actually arranged marriage. My father is from Penang. My mom is from Singapore. The reason why it was arranged marriage is that because our family believes that our people is so little, they want to keep the blood going. So, and then also trying to keep whatever that was from our great-grandparents. This is how it is. And one thing very fun about it is that we practice matriarchy system. So the women in the family has more power over the men. I know. Yeah, so sometimes we joke about it and saying that if I met another person, they say, oh, you're Nonyas too. And I say, oh, so do your mom beat your dad? And I say, yes, oh, you're authentic. We sometimes say that, but no, you shouldn't really say that, but yes, that's how you do. I'm actually, my father is also a restaurateur. He also has his own restaurants in Penang. And then we serve at least 4 generations of people in his restaurants. And then it's fun to see that when I have my own restaurant here, I've met many customers that I met here in New York. They growing up eating my parents' food at another side of the world. Yeah, so finally I understand why my father said, because when I was little, I hate to be in the kitchens. Because as a part of the Baba Nyonya, because I said it's a matriarchal systems, and I'm the eldest daughter in the family. So I have a lot of obligations. The eldest daughter in the family, you are responsible in everything that your family have given to you. It's like some Chinese family, the eldest man inherit everything. But for us, the eldest daughter would have to inherit everything that your parents is passing to you. So you have all the powers in some ways. So when it comes to because I have to be in the kitchens at a very young age, just because this is something that we practice. So we pray every 1st and the 15th of Lunar month. We pray and then we prepare a lot of food to put all the families together. This is as a blessing. So when I was a kid, I don't understand. Why do I have to spend so much time in the kitchens? And but my mother, she wouldn't really tell me too much, but my grandmother do tell me a lot of stories about how the food things goes. We all have very interesting story about it because we apply a lot of philosophy in life that we learn from preparing food, which I'm going to tell you guys more about it later. So this is my grandmother. You can see that she looks a little bit much Eurasian because our background is Portuguese, Chinese. So this is her and my mom. And then this is my family. I'm the one in the middle. I look more girlish back then. So it's I think maybe because inside of us is that, the eldest daughter in the family, you slowly become a little bit more and more masculine in some ways. And then, I love food when I was little, this is the thing that we do, in a ceremony, once you reach the age of 1, they put the different things in a plate for you to pick up. And then they say, I can see what you do in the future. So I pick up 3 things. I remember one main thing that I picked up was a drumstick. So my parents say, something to do with the food. So I say, I think so, yeah, it's a big drumstick, why not, That's the only thing you probably during that age you can see. So here it comes again. So our food, you can see this is the food that I serve in my restaurants, the way that it was presented, and it looks very colorful and all that. And then here it is. These are 2, so this is pretty much what we serve there. And then I change my menu very often. Sometimes weekend menu also depends on my mood. And so it's my customers, it's very casual. It's I try to bring Malaysians coffee cultures to New York City. Not only to New York City, because in the coffee cultures in Malaysia is so different, is that we go to a certain place for generations. Like here in New York, you go to a certain coffee shop because it's nearby to your place, because it's so convenient. You see familiar faces every day, but you don't develop an unconventional relationship with this person. But for us, the coffee cultures in Malaysia especially, the people who actually have their own coffee shop, they serve at least 3 generations of people. It's I know this old man, and then he seems every time that he passes me the coffee, it's with his shaking hand. He's like my grandfather, but we are not related, but he knows my entire family. He knows everything about it. And when I was little, I asked my father, I said, why do you want to open a restaurant? And then he said, food connects people. I do not understand that when I was a kid. I said, how food connects people? I was born with Asperger, actually, so I never understand the kind of connections from very young age. I just know how to eat. So, and until I meet people in New York that actually had eaten in my father's restaurants, that's when I realized that, food really travels and food really connects people. Food doesn't only travels within, but it also travels out, Okay, so this is my very first store. I opened my very first store in 2015. It was funny that when I was in Malaysia, I swear to God that I don't want to be in the food business. Because when I was a kid, I have to help out in my parents' restaurants, and I hated it. I said, why do I have to do it every 1st and the 15th of the month? And I still have to help in your restaurants. But I mean, this is, you're growing up in a restaurant's business, so this is what you do. Then my parents would say, yeah, don't get into the food business, do something else. Be a doctor, be a lawyer, be whatever. But don't be in the restaurant business. I said, yes, trust me, I'm not gonna do that. So I came here to study. I major I double major in psychology and public relations and advertising. Initially it was psychology because I'm trying to understand my own traits. Because I said that I was born with Asperger. I was much weird back then. Now that I'm a little bit more socialized because I was trained after. So to open this store, it's totally without business plan, to be honest. It's just one day I found, even though I say that how much that I hated to work in the restaurants, but I somehow developed that kind of comfort when I was back in the kitchens because I don't have to talk to anyone, but I just have to talk to those food, So this became a meditation to me. And then I was invited to one of my friends' house. So I would start cooking. And then now that I realize every time I go to a party, the minute when I enter the room and then go straight to the kitchen, and the person who invited me, they was, oh, can you cut me a scallion? And then she starts sitting. And I would just do all the rest of the things. And then I realized, hey, I'm supposed to be in a party. I'm not supposed to go to be a chef, But yes. So this is how it started. So then they tell me, they say, oh, you should, start, making kaya. My very first thing that I let my friends try is kaya jam. We are going to present to you guys later. So they tried to tell me to make all these things in jars and then try to give it to them so that they can have it in the morning. This is something that we have in the morning as breakfast. And then I was like, no, I'm not gonna do it. Then I'd go back and do it and then I start distributing to everyone. Then slowly they have like a private party, I would go cook for them. And then one day they would say, oh, why don't you do certain things like that? Like open up a restaurant. I said, no, I'm not gonna do it. Until one day, my father, because I'm closer to my father than my mother. My mom is a very strict mom because in the Nyonya family, the women has more power, right? But one thing that I learned with my mother and my grandmother is that because my mother sometimes even when she talks, I don't understand what is her emotions because having Asperger, plus I'm so scared of my mom, because of she looks like something. So it's like whenever she starts talking, I just say, what she want? Listen to the tone, what pitch right now? What levels is she? Angry, not angry? I'm not sure. But I realized that when I cook next to her, we are in peace. I said, then I realized that sometimes when you're trying to talk to another person, you might say the wrong things, but the food will never makes it wrong. The love that she have in food, and then when she passes to you, that language will never go wrong. And if ever anyone asks me what is the best tool that you need in the kitchens, I would say your hands, because it's a bridge that connected to your heart. This is one you presented in your food. So I realized that I have a very peaceful relationship with my mom when we're not talking, only when we are cooking next to each other. So yeah, but I'm very close to my father because every time he had the same feeling with me. So sometimes I always ask him the same question, say, why you marry my mom, He's like, he's arranged marriage. Yeah, so I'm very close to my father. So in 2015, my father had a midlife crisis, so he had depressions. Then I talked to him over the phone, and I don't know how to comfort him. So I said, okay, let's talk about food. That's the only thing that we can talk about. Because I remember me and my father sometimes say we want to have away mom time. My dad would kind of bring me out and try to go to somewhere and eat, something that my mom wouldn't allow me or my father to eat. We would go there and then start talking about bullshit or whatever, but yes. And then my father was talking about the food and he said, oh, he came up with a recipe, he was cooking this, he think it was great and all this kind of thing. And I started to think of a lot of things that what I experienced back home. That I actually do miss what my parents were doing. And then I have seen how many generation of people that they served. And I remember when they were in the restaurant, my dad has these amazing memories. He never had a book in his hand. He would go to 3-4 tables and take down all their orders at once. Because he had a very bad handwriting. So if he start writing and pass that paper to my mom would get very angry. So what he would do is that he goes to all the tables and ask them what they want, and they come back and tell my mom, okay, table 3 want this, 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 this. And I look at it, it was like 10 things in the list. And he remembers, and I always wonder how he does that. Then I finally understand that because when he say food connects people, is that when you have the food actually develop this unconventional relationship. So you develop an unconventional relationship with your customer, your regulars that you have with them. And then so you kind of know what this person like, and that would make you remember what they actually want in their food. So he remember all this list. So then I started to think about, like, what if all this were gone? Like, if one day my parents were gone, so whatever that he does in this restaurant were gone, whatever that my grandmother, my great-grandmothers has left to us has gone. And then I started to have these things in me, it just hit me. And then, because we're long distance, right? I'm here, they're there. Then I talked to my mom, went this far of distance, so we can't talk. Then my mom said, hey, remember the place that your dad liked to bring you to? They shut down. And then I said, why? And this place, they serve a specific kind of, also Baba Nyonya dessert. And the guy who served it, I remember, he's an old guy, half deaf. And then every time when you go there, you don't have to, he just look at you, you're just like, you don't have to say anything, and then he just know who you are, and he start making your thing. Then he stopped doing that. So I asked my mom why. My mom said, because he retired, he passed away, but all his kids are engineers, doctors now. No one's doing what he does. And then I don't know why, then I kind of feel sad about it. And I feel like, something that is traditional and is missing. Then I was doing some readings. And I saw, because when I came to New York, trust me, I didn't want to be a psychologist just because I was trying to understand my own thing. And then when I also major in public relations and also advertising, I want to be in the fashion industry. So I was reading these fashions, this magazine about this editor. She turned herself to become a chef, and then she became a blogger, and she write about her stories. So she's actually half Korean and half white. And then she was saying that, like, her mom is a Korean, and then in the morning she would prepare 3 different types of breakfast, and then one day her mom developed a cancer, and then she was gone in 6 months. She tried for 2 years to develop the kimchi that her mom prepared for her. She used to take that for granted. And then even though after 2 years, she said she had developed a close enough, but not exactly the one. Then I asked myself, do I want to be like that? And I realized that when I was a kid, my father, every time I go to school, I hated when people know that I'm my father's kid because the restaurants was actually famous. And then my school would say, oh, like, this is a teacher's day or children's day. Would you like to donate your chicken wings? So I hated that. But yes, so I remember all these recipes that my father had. So I wanted to bring his recipe to New York City. And I started this. In 1 month, I registered. I quit my job. I was the event planner for nightlife. It was amazing. But I don't feel that it was connected to me inside. It was great. It was, fantastic and all that. But with all these things that happened at one time, at this specific time, then I decided to say, hey, let me do something that continue my family legacy. So in 1 month, I registered everything and opened up a company. Then I started selling on the street fairs. So I pointed to my mom, as a part of the Asian kid, you tell your mom and say, hey, mom, you lied to me. You said that if I study well, I have a 3.85 GPA scores in my classes, but I'm still selling on the street. You said that if I study well, I don't have to do that. My mom doesn't know what to say to me, right? And then 4 months after, I opened my very first store, 210 square feet storefront. This is the 210 square feet storefront. Everybody thinks that I was crazy because it's very small. In New York City, we understand that everything is so small, but no one actually tried to start a restaurant or a cafe in such small size. I do. That was originally a flower shop. So if you put like an egg on this side, it would just roll over there. The floor is not even straight at all. So, and I went there and I just look around and say, hey, I can turn this to a cafe. And then I named my coffee shop as Kopitiams. Kopitiams means coffee shop in our language. Kopis means coffee, tiams means shops. And there's only 4 stools. And then I just want to have a little corner to myself. I just want to make $200 a day, pretty much. This is how I started that. And then I think in the second month, we started to have a lot of coverage from Business Insiders, New York Times, all that. You know, like sometimes, like, you know, when I first open up this restaurant, I just want to cook everything that I like, and then the menu is just so free-full. Like sometimes you have a lot of things in one day. Sometimes I don't, just because I feel like I want to cook this today. It's like I want to eat one thing, and then I want to sell the 9th thing. It's like I make 10 pieces, and then I eat one, I sell the 9th. It's like, you know, for calculation-wise, that's, you know, from a business perspective, hey, that's right? So it was only me. Seriously, this is a storefront, very small. It's me behind the counter, and then, you know, like this small thing. So people actually thought that I cook and prep the things at home, and they bring it down here. I say, no, I'm not doing that. I cook everything right here. So I actually fried the anchovies inside this small little store too. And next door was a guy who sold a Thai, and he would say, oh, like, my store also smells like anchovies. My Thais are expensive Thais, and then people smell anchovy, they don't want to buy my Thai. I said, no, they don't buy it because it's expensive. It has nothing to do with anchovies. So now this is my storefront. It's located in just 1 block down, 5 times bigger than original is. Now we have 40 seats. And then, so originally it was only me behind the counter. And then, so this is like a store, you know, like I trying to, this store was originally a sunglasses store. So it was not a restaurant. So that street was pretty much like empty. There was like a lumberyard across the street. Went in there and I feel this place is by itself. And I say, hey, I can turn it to become something like home. So I designed the whole thing. Even the table was actually self-made. I color the way that, you know, so every single piece, the tables and the stools, everything it makes me remember that how I grew up in a kopitiams back home. So kopitiams, like I mentioned, kopitiams means coffee shop. So you can, in Malaysia, there's many kopitiams, but in front of kopitiams, there's like different people's last name. So then that represent different families have their own coffee shops. And then this is like our group of people right now. So we have like, right now it's about 16 to 18 people. Front of the house is the young kids in the community. We're trying to give back to the community. Many of them have never never worked before. So in my kitchens, mostly are like single parents also. They came here, you know, live paycheck to paychecks, but many are like mothers in the kitchens and kids at the front, you know. So this is what we're trying to do to give back to the community. First job, working at the front of the house, and then trying to see what they're actually good at. And then many of them, they started in high schools, and then they work until they were ready to go to the university. And then, you know, like within that time, you see if this particular persons that she's interested in culinary, and we also train them. If they're interested in like management and all that, we also train them in any way, trying to make sure that they are preparing to go to the next stage. So you say like a kopitiam is pretty much just like a stepping stone for these youngsters. So here is the flowers that we are going to talk about. So it relates to whatever that we're doing today. So the butterfly peas, we grow a lot of the ingredients in our home. So butterfly pea is one of them. So we grow pandan leaf, which I'm going to show. Okay. So this is the butterfly peas. So this is all dry already. So in our garden, it's very common to see that we grow different types of flowers in our garden to get the colors. The butterfly peas is one of them. I remember when I first opened up my first stores, and I need butterfly peas, and I need my mom to ship it to me. So in our garden, we have a lot of butterfly peas. So she had to pluck it and then sun dry them. But I realized that we don't have enough. So you know what my mom do? Is that we went to the neighbors and we start plucking theirs. Because they're not plucking theirs. So it's like my mom would say, oh, you know that, you know, the whole entire block, they have no blue flowers now. And so that supplied me for 6 months. Good job, Mom. So it's like, you know, see, our relationship gets a little bit further now. So then, but pandan leaf, I cannot ask her to ship it because I need the fresh ones, right? So the only way to get the fresh ones is get the frozen ones. So thanks to, because in New York City, we do have a lot of Southeast Asians group, Thailand, Vietnam, they do ship a lot of pandan leaves to us. So this is the pandan leaf that we have it here. So in another language, the pandan leaves also named as screw pine leaves. So we describe it to people, the flavors is like Southeast Asian kind of vanilla leaves. So we use this for flowers, we use this for fragrance. We can actually, you know, if you buy the pandan leaves, you cook the rice and then you tie the knot, you throw this in, you infuse your rice smells so good. And then if you blend it, you get the green colors and also get the flavor from. It smells sweet, but it's not sweet. This is how it is. And then like here is the, oh, okay. Okay, so how we do that is like, so today we are serving the pulut tai tai. So puluts mean wraps. Tai tai is just the name of the things that we call the specific kuehs. Kuehs is the sweet that we're serving we have a lot of sweets that we serve in our cuisine, right? So this is the butterfly piece that we use after we sun-dried it. Then we will put in, sorry, right here. Yeah, after this, and then we just take, well, it depends on how much of the rice that you're actually cooking, which I'm sure Pia will explain it later, the calculations. So like, we'll put this flour in, and then we start boiling. So the heats will make sure that all the blue sprouts will come out. After it boils, you'll see you get the colors from the flowers. So this is pretty much the colors after you boil it, and then you strain it. After you strain it, you'll get the blue colors. And then this you can pretty much use to do your cake, or you can soak your rice into you can soak the rice into the blue water pretty much. So we usually, because the sticky rice is usually hard, so I would suggest, like, if you guys want to do like a sticky rice things, you will have to soak the rice overnight. So say like if you're doing the next morning, before you sleep, you just put the water in, and then make sure this is soft, like the next day, and then you get this blue this blue water, right? So but make sure that it is cold before you actually soak that in your rice. Otherwise, the colors return to something else, because if it is hot, and then your sticky rice would be like sort of like half cooked in some ways, and then it will turn purple instead. So in order to keep it blue, this is what we're actually gonna do in there. So we will soak the rice in the blue flour. And then, so like this is without the heat. So after the heat, the colors will actually turn darker. And then this is, so pretty much after this, we will strain the butterfly piece out, and then we will strain out all the waters after 3 hours. So when you want to get your sticky rice with the blue flour, so you just have to soak it at least 3 hours to make sure you got the blues in the rice. And then some people, they feel that they don't want just like blue. You can also mix the white sticky rice with it too, to make it look more colorful. Then you put it into the steamer. You steam it for, sorry, I forgot about this. I'm not used to it. Yeah, so this is how it come out too. So it's a blue sticky rice, and on top is actually the grated coconut. But today what we served is not with the grated coconut. That is pulut tea. But whatever that we're serving today is called pulut tai tai. It's a sticky rice with a side of kaya jam, which is the green one. So this is how I do, this is from the pandan leaves. The pandan leaves, so what we actually do is that we kind of like chopped it and put it into the blender, and also with the coconut milk, which, and then, so you put it, we don't put any water to get the extract. So we put we pour the coconut milk into the blender and then blend to make sure, you will see the color change because the blender will also create the heat, and then it will become like darker colors too. So after that, so this is the kaya jam that I was talking about. So we will get the custard. So these are the ingredients that we use for the kaya jam. This is, hold on 1 second. Okay, in order to make this custard, this is called kaya jam, this custard. Kaya jam in our language means rich. So, when you taste it, it actually tastes very rich too. So in order to make this, these are the ingredients that we're actually gonna go through. This is like the palm sugar. This is the palm sugar. Palm sugar, so you have to smash them. Smash them, and then also added the egg that we have with the eggs here. So the recipe for this kaya jams is easy. We have eggs, palm sugar, pandan leaves, and the coconut milk. Just very simple ingredients, 4 different ingredients. So put everything together and turn into something beautiful. So this is, here we go. Yes. So I'm gonna demonstrate how we wrap the blue sticky rice with the grated coconut. So this is the, okay, sorry. So this is the sticky rice. You know, after you soak the sticky rice and you steam it, you know, we usually, after we steam it, then we put a little bit of the sea salt with the coconut milk. And then after it was cooked, the sticky rice was cooked, then you mix it up and then we steam it for another 10 minutes so to make sure that the rice absorbs all the coconut milk in the sticky rice. Then you take it out for cooling and then you make a small little shape and then you put in this, underneath this is banana leaves. And then this is how we wrapped it. Like this. And then when you're ready to eat, you just unwrap the leaves and then put the, like a scoop of that. This is like as a dipping sauce for the blue sticky rice. So it'll give you a very different flavors. But today, the sticky rice that we use is apparently a wrong grain. So, you know, probably the texture is a little bit hard, but usually it's softer because you use the sticky rice. So, so yeah. So yeah, I mean, just pretty much shows that, you know, this is what our cuisine is. Very colorful. We use like flowers and, you know, that you see the piece on that side too is blue. We also use the same butterfly pea to infuse it as well. So the green is from the pandan leaves that I mentioned. The drinks is also from the butterfly peas as well. It becomes purple because once it touches something like acidic, it will turn to become a purple. So this is our cuisine, pretty much very colorful. So everything that we use is also from the flowers and the leaves they use. The one on the other side, the green and the white one, is called kueh talam. And on the other side is the rice dumpling. We are the only place that served the rice dumpling in a Nyonya way because the textures is very different, and also in our cuisine we like to balance the salty and the sweet together. So apparently, you know, like that, especially the kueh talam that we have, according to my grandmother, when I was a kid, I only like to eat the sweet part. Right. I only like to eat the sweet part. And I thought it was only me until I served it here. And I realized that when I served it to the customers and I saw their kids only eat the sweet part, then I was like, oh, is that a kid thing? Then I was like, shit. And, you know, it's like you find similarities and then you just like, hey, you know. And then, so I tell it to my parents, I tell it to my parents, right? And it remind me a conversation that I had with my grandmother. So my grandmother saying, you know, like I mentioned, a lot of our cuisine is actually related to, you know, we apply the philosophy of our cooking to real life. And he said, when you're a kid, you always want sweet stuff. Things are simple. You like something sweet. But when you're grown up, you start to appreciate the saltiness, which is the sweat that balance your life. So a lot of our cuisine do have all these kind of balance things. We like to put, you know, like, and then we always believe in, like, you know, like you see, like even kaya, it means rich, right? But you can see all the ingredients that we have. It's very simple. My grandmother always said that to me. It doesn't mean you're simple. It doesn't mean you're not special. So you could be something, and then, you know, that unrelated. We sometimes do not see ourselves, or you know, when it comes to cuisine, we don't see these things will work with that thing. But you do not know when all these simple things work together, it would create some sort of harmonious relationship with one another. So this is what we do in our cuisine. I think next I'm just gonna pass it to Pia to finish the rest.
In the class just had a midterm last week, so this is your midterm question. So here's the recipe, and so the first step is soak sticky rice in water overnight. Okay, boil butterfly pea in water to extract color concentrate, let it cool. So that was basically what we did there. 3, add butterfly pea water to the rice, soak for 3 hours for the color. Okay, here we go. We have a time. We have a time which is 3 hours. And I'm just going to turn that into seconds. So that's times 60 minutes times 60 seconds. And eventually I want to calculate my D, right? So I can fill in my table. So I'm going to estimate the L. And I'm going to take a little rice grain here. I'm just going to open it. I'm just going to estimate how thick it is. So here's a rice grain. And I'm just going to estimate that this here is about 0.5 millimeters. It's tiny. So something like that. So 0.5 millimeters, that's 0.05 centimeters. Okay, so that's how far it goes in 3 hours, about. And I have my equation, which says L equals square root of 4dt. So I have my t, I have my L. I want to solve for d, and that means that, I'm just going to move this down. It means d is equals to L squared over 4 times t. Okay, L squared is 0.05 squared over 4 times 3 times 60 times 60. And I don't know if we have any quick calculators in the audience. But if you do, you could get an apron. Yes. So basically 6 times 10 to the negative 7 centimeters squared per second. Does anyone agree? Does anyone disagree? Koto, you agree? I agree. You agree. Anyone disagree? I think that means, friends, I think this means that we have our diffusion coefficient for whatever molecule is making the rice purple. And for that, you get an apron. And this means that we can fill in our table. P flour pigment, D equals, oh, I guess I calculated it slightly differently, whatever. Close enough, within an order of magnitude, right? Yeah, actually that's good, look. 10 to the negative 7, same. The thing that's diffusing is an anthocyanin, that is the purple color. It is it's a related compound to what's in cabbage, blueberries, whatever that purple compound is that changes color when the pH changes. And you can see that since it's a slightly bigger molecule than like water or calcium ions, it also moves a little bit more slowly. So it's kind of the equivalent of you in there in the crowd with a stroller or lots of umbrellas. You move slowly because you're big. But this is the number. And we did it. So thank you, Kyo, for helping us add to our table. And thank you for the delicious, delicious food. And I think now, let's give Kyo a hand, and then we have questions.